जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमन डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन धाम की जय। ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन धाम की जय। मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की जय। श्री राधा शरद बिहारी जी की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। परम करुणा श्री गौरणिताय की जय। कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदायिनी श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Gaur Hari Gaur. Namo Vishnu Shrimati. Hare Krishna. Welcome all to our daily Srimad Bhagavatam study here at ISKCON of Philadelphia. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. Before I begin, I seek permission and blessings from all the Vaishnavas who are assembled here. Please bless so that I can repeat what I've heard. Okay, so our verse for today is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 11, text number 19. I'll recite the shloka 3 times, but before that, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Shunvatam Swakatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti suhritsatam Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading, studying and discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 11, Text 19. I'll recite the shloka 3 times, and anyone who wants to recite can do so. Varamukyascha sataso yanais darshanot lasat kundala nirbhata kapolo vadana shriya. Varamukyascha sataso yanais darshanot lasat kundala nirbhata kapala vadana shriya. Varamukyascha sataso yanais darshanot lasat kundala nirbhata kapala vadana shriya. Krishna, anyone would like to recite?
Hare Krishna. Varamukhyascha sataso yonesh taddarshanot sukha lasat kundala nirbhata kapola vadanashriyaha.
Hare Krishna. Varamukhyascha satasho yanestadarshanotsukaha लसत् कुंडल निर्वाता कपोल वदन श्रियः. Hare Krishna.
वारमुख्याश्च शतसो यानैस्तद्दर्शनोत्सुका लसत्कुण्डलनिर्भाता कपोलवदनश्रिया. हरे कृष्ण.
हरे कृष्ण. वारामुखश्च शतशो यानस्तद्दर्शनोत्सुकः लसत्कुण्डलनिर्वाता कपुलावदनश्रियः.
Hare Krishna. Vara mukya sucha satatso yenaish tadadarshanotsukha lasat kundal nirbhata kapole vadana shriya. Hare Krishna.
Varamukhyascha satasho yanaistadarshanotsukha lasat kundala nirbhata kapola vadana shriya.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else like to recite? Okay. Word to word translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Ave Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Avara Mukhya, well-known prostitutes, Cha and Satasaha, hundreds of, Yane, by vehicles, Tat Darshana, for meeting him, Lord Sri Krishna, Utsukaha, very much anxious, Lasat, hanging, Kundala, earrings, Nirbhatha, dazzling, Kapola, forehead, Vadana, face, Shriya, beauty. At the same time, many hundreds of well-known prostitutes began to proceed on various vehicles. They were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings, which enhanced the beauty of their foreheads. Purport. We may not hate even the prostitutes if they are devotees of the Lord. Even to date, there are many prostitutes in great cities of India who are sincere devotees of the Lord. By tricks of chance, one may be obliged to adopt a profession which is not very adorable in society, but that does not hamper one in executing devotional service to the Lord. Devotional service to the Lord is uncheckable in all circumstances. It is understood herewith that even in those days, about 5,000 years ago, there were prostitutes in a city like Dwarka, where Lord Krishna resided. This means that prostitutes are necessary citizens for the proper upkeep of society. The government opens wine shops, but this does not mean that the government encourages the drinking of wine. The idea is that there is a class of men who will drink at any cost, and it has been experienced that prohibition in great cities encouraged illicit smuggling of wine. Similarly, men who are not satisfied at home require such concessions. And if there is no prostitute, then such low men will induce others into prostitution. It is better that prostitutes be available in the marketplace so that the sanctity of society can be maintained. It is better to maintain a class of prostitutes than to encourage prostitutes within society. The real reformation is to enlighten all people to become devotees of the Lord, and that will check all kinds of deteriorating factors of life. Sri Bilva Mangala Thakura, a great Acharya of the Vishnu Swami Vaishnava sect, in his householder life, was overly attached to a prostitute who happened to be a devotee of the Lord. One night, when the Thakura came to Chintamani's house in torrents of rain and thunder, Chintamani was astonished to see how the Thakura could come on such a dreadful night after crossing a foaming river which was full of waves. She said to Thakur Bilva Mangala that his attraction for the flesh and bone of an insignificant woman like her would be properly utilized if it could be diverted to the devotional service of the Lord to achieve attraction for the transcendental beauty of the Lord. It was a momentous hour for the Thakura, and he took a turn towards spiritual realization by the words of a prostitute. Later on, the Thakura accepted the prostitute as a spiritual master, and in several places of his literary works, he has glorified the name of Chintamani, who showed him the right path. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.32, the Lord says, O son of Pritha, even the low-born Chandalas and those who are born in a family of unbelievers and even the prostitutes shall attain perfection of life if they take shelter of unalloyed devotional service to me. Because in the path of devotional service, there are no impediments due to degraded birth and occupation. The path is open for everyone who agrees to follow it. It appears that the prostitutes of Dwaraka, who were so eager to meet the Lord, were all his unalloyed devotees, and thus they were all on the path of salvation, according to the above version of the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, the only reformation that is necessary in society is to make an organized effort to turn the citizens into devotees of the Lord. And thus, all good qualities of the denizens of heaven will overtake them in their own way. On the other hand, those who are non-devotees have no good qualifications whatsoever. However, they may be materially advanced. The difference is that the devotees of the Lord are on the path of liberation, whereas the non-devotees are on the path of further entanglement with the material bondage. The criteria of advancement of civilization is whether the people are educated and advanced on the path of salvation. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurue Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining. So it's a beautiful verse. Varamukyascha sataso, yanais tad darshanat sukha, lasat kundala nirbhata, kapolo vadana shriya. So here we are discussing about how Lord Krishna is being welcomed to Dwaraka. Yeah, in the previous verses, we were seeing how all these great personalities welcomed Krishna back to Dwaraka. Yeah, anyone remembers who were some of the personalities mentioned in the previous verse or verses? Who all came running to see Krishna?
Krishna's sons, Samba, Pradyumna.
Yes.
Vasudev,
yes.
Ugrasena.
Yes. Balaram was there, right? The other day we were discussing Charusena. So yes, all these great personalities, when they heard that Krishna is coming, he was approaching Dwarka Dham, they literally abandoned everything they were doing. So happy they were. Literally they left everything and ran. They ran towards the Lord on chariots, and with so many flower petals being showered. There were elephants, conch shells, bugles were sounded, the Brahmanas were chanting Vedic hymns. So, this way, they offered all their respects to Krishna. And this was all filled with a lot of affection and love for Krishna. It showed their love and affection for Krishna. It was not meant for some, grandeur or opulence. It is to show love for the Lord. Pranaya Gata, that was the Sanskrit word that was used in the previous verse, and it was the meaning was with most affection. Yeah. So because it's not something we do mechanically. Yeah. And this way of reception, this is the Vedic way of welcoming uh, great personalities. So it creates a very beautiful atmosphere. This Vedic way of receiving great personalities creates an atmosphere of respect, which is saturated with affection and veneration for the person who's received. Yeah. And so much paraphernalia, as we just discussed. Yeah. So all of these, Vedic chants, conch shells, bugles, flowers, incense, elephants were decorated. And this is done with so much love, so much sincerity. So it's natural that the recipient is also reciprocates or is pleased. So in today's words, the beauty is, among all these personalities that we discussed, today's verse is saying, Vara Mukhyascha. Yeah, the prostitutes, the popular prostitutes also were rushing to see Krishna. So Vara Mukhyascha, the Devadasis, they're also called the popular ones. And how many were there? Satasaha. Hundreds of these prostitutes in many vehicles they came. And what was the mood? How did they come? Yanai tad darshanotsukaha, with anxiousness, with excitement to see Krishna. How is Krishna? How wonderful is Krishna? How wonderfully is Krishna decorated? What ornaments was he wearing? They came in vehicles, hundreds of these, to take darshan of the Lord. So I was just thinking about this darshanotsukaha, that I can also remember to whenever I want to see the deities, whether it is in the temple, in Rath Yatra or anywhere, or even at home, when we take darshan of the Lord, that see how these personalities, including the prostitutes, were so anxious, and excitement is there to see the Lord. And Lasat Kundala, their Lasat Kundala Nirbhatha. Yeah, they're hanging earrings. Yeah. You remember this word? Anyone remembers where we heard this? Lasat Kundala.
Yeah, it's Namamishwaram Sachidananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam.
Yes, it reminds us. Yes, thank you, Mataji. So, and the part here is, why are these prostitutes so happy? The beauty, and this is another very important point, the beauty that arises from the happiness of seeing the Lord is so poetic. So the real beauty of these Devadasis is the joy. So the joy they got from the anxiousness to see the Lord. This is real beauty, not the physical beauty, but the real beauty is the joy when one gets from the anxiousness and the excitement to see the Lord. I thought was very, very, had a very deep meaning. So all these Devadasis or prostitutes, they came in hundreds of vehicles with beautifully decorated hanging earrings. Yeah, and their faces were glowing because of the anxiousness to see the Lord. That's the translation. And Prabhupada writes here in the purport, very first line, he writes that we don't have to reject such prostitutes if they are devotees of the Lord. So all the people we discussed, great personalities, giving reception, and that included these women. And Prabhupada, in the purport to glorify them, gives a very wonderful reformative or transformative story of Bilva Mangal Thakur, who was born, in the South India, as a South Indian Brahmana. Most people say, and I may be wrong, but I heard most people say he is from Andhra, but I also heard few people say he's from Kerala. But nevertheless, both are South India. Yeah. So he used to live in the banks of Krishna River, and he had an attraction for a prostitute named Chintamani. Yeah. And on one occasion, Bilva Mangal Thakur's father, he left his body, and the last rites were being performed. And naturally, at the time of death in a family, everyone is in grief, and mostly so the son, of course, everybody was performing all those rites. I was recently in India. I'm now in India. I just arrived a few hours ago. But last time I was here in March, I had to come because my uncle left his body. And he was a source of inspiration for me many years because of his very strict, very austere spiritual life. So, and his spiritual practices. So I came to India, and I saw the whole family was, mourning and grieving, and of course I was one of them. So the point is, Bilva Mangal Thakur. So the point I'm trying to make. So there's a lot of grief during that period, and Bilva Mangal Thakur was performing all this, and there was a priest who was doing all the rituals, and he tells the priest, speed up the process, finish these mantras and puja. You know why? He was very anxious to meet Chintamani, the prostitute. He was more anxious to meet her than to perform or complete the rites of his father who left his body. Yeah, so he was so anxious to go and meet her. So, so he rushes to meet her, and it is explained that on that particular day there was a huge storm, and there was so much waves, and flooding the Krishna River. So, and because of that huge waves and flood, there were no boats there. Everybody literally abandoned the boats, the boatmen, and they all, fled from there. So Bilva Mangal Thakur was very anxious to somehow meet with Chintamani, and he was desperately looking for what to do, and then he found something floating. He thought that was like a log of wood, and then held on to that and swam across the river and went to the other side. Yeah, and somehow reached the house of Chintamani. And there, he still didn't enter the house. He was still outside. The gate was locked. And then inside the house, Chintamani, the prostitute, was in fear, not knowing. She was scared. She was scared that there's such a huge storm. What is going to happen? She was very worried, and it was a very scary situation for her. And then here, Bilva Mangal Thakur, he comes, he sees, the gate is locked. How do I enter into the house? Yeah. Anybody knows, who have read or heard the story? What does he do next?
He took a rope, but then he found out that it was a snake by Chintamani.
Yes, yeah, he thinks it's a rope, so takes the help of that rope, climbs up onto the tree and jumps, thank you, Mataji, and jumps into the house and somehow gets into the house of Chintamani. And what happens? Chintamani is shocked to see him. And she says, how could you even make it into my house? How could you even possibly get this far? She was shocked. How could even, to see him there? And his response was, Chintamani, I came to see you. So excited he was to see her. It's so much excited. I came to see you, and she thought, this person didn't even care for his life and came to see me. And even if he had a tiny bit of that much attachment and or attraction to the Lord, he would have been so successful in his life. And thinking this way, she tells Bilva Mangal Thakur, little bit harshly, but she tells him, aren't you ashamed? You're so attracted to the flesh of my body that if you had a bit attraction for the Lord, you would have become such a great devotee. And this way, she chastises him. She chastises him, and he slowly comes to his senses and realizes. What does he realize? He realizes that what he thought was a log of wood, which he used to swim across the river, was actually a dead body. What he thought was a rope that he used to climb the tree was a snake. So he realizes. So Kamaturanam na bhayam na lajja. So there was no fear, and no, no shame. No shame. So now he realizes and he thinks that he wanted to develop his attraction for Krishna. Just like he came to Chintamani's home, so to develop attraction for Krishna, he decided to go where? Where did he decide to go?
Vrindavan.
Vrindavan. Yes, he decided to go to Vrindavan. Now see, on his way to Vrindavan, he gets attracted to another woman. Albeit this is a very chaste woman. And he follows her to her home. He follows her to her home, and she, being a very chaste and cultured woman, and thought that, oh, this person is looking like a Brahmana, and she invites him into her home. And the woman's husband also was a very cultured, wonderful person, and he wanted to serve Bilva Mangal in the mood of Atiti Devo Bhava. Guest is like God, and we need to take care of him. Atiti Devo Bhava. And so he tells his wife, okay, let's take care of this Brahmana and fulfill whatever his wish is. And when the host asks Bilva Mangal Thakur, how can we serve you? What was his answer?
I want your wife.
I want your wife. Yes. And what does the host do? He's such a cultured, wanted to really genuinely take care of the guest. So he prays to the Lord along with his wife. And they decide to give him what he wants. And this kind of mood, this is another important point, this kind of mood does not come. Probably if somebody asks me, I'll get so mad and angry and want to maybe bash him up, right? Or some, I don't know, maybe some wonderful devotees may react differently, but naturally the instant reaction will be, are you mad? And want to, slap him or something, or tell him, get out from here, something very rude. Yeah, but these wonderful husband and wife, they decided. So, and the Paramatma within them tells now, we can see how they were fully dependent on the Lord. And they were so dependent of the Lord. And because of their prayers, the same realization that came in the heart of Bilvamangal Thakur when Chintamani spoke, that same realization again came to Bilvamangal Thakur. Yeah, and this thought came to his mind, because of my eyes, I have this thought. If I don't have these eyes, then there is no question of such thoughts. So he takes the pin, the hairpin from that woman, and he pokes his eyes. But not only poking his eyes, he genuinely regretted. He genuinely regretted his actions. Yeah. So, we see in some countries, especially in the Middle East, the women are so covered, right? And there's so stringent punishment to even, I don't know all the laws, but stringent punishment is given to people who act like this. Even pull out the eyes for certain kind of abominable sins. But one thing we can learn is, but the desire for sin won't go away, right? Doing these things, you may stop the sin, or you may, but the desire to sin won't go away. This is another important thing. Yeah, like if I cut the tree, will the tree stop growing? As long as the roots are there and water is there, it will grow again. So same way, the desire to sin will come. So just by doing pious activities or other religious activities, my sins may be washed away, but the desire to sin will remain. But only, brothers, only if we take to the process of Krishna consciousness and chant the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the mood of repentance, then Sarva Papa Pranashana. In the Bhagavatam, it is discussed that all the sins will be washed away. Yeah? And the desire to sin also. The roots to sin will also be washed away. So, with repentance, poking his eyes, so he became blind. And in that blind state, and in the mode of repentance, he started to Vrindavan. And what happened there, the Lord himself, in the form of a small boy, Gopal, comes and personally gives him prasadam. Yeah. And when Bilvamangal Thakur asks, who are you? Because he's blind, so he says, I'm Gopal, and I live here in Vrindavan. I'm a small boy. My name is Gopal, and I live here in Vrindavan. And Bilvamangal Thakur thought he's one of the small boys. Yeah? Many kids are named Gopal in Vrindavan, right? So, and Bilvamangal Thakur also had a guru there, Somagiri. Because, without guru, one cannot reach Krishna. So, in the shelter of this guru, he practiced Krishna consciousness. And this guru, he was in the Vishnu Swami. Prabhupada writes in the purport here, we won't go into the details of that, but he says, Srila Bilvamangal Thakur, a great Acharya of the Vishnu Swami Vaishnava sect. So, which is the Rudra Sampradaya, one of the four bona fide Sampradayas. So, so he took shelter, and then his guru gave him the name Leela Sukha, that he will narrate wonderful pastimes of Radha and Krishna, just as great as Sukadeva Goswami. So one day, when this boy Gopal was playing flute, then Bilvamangal Thakur realized that this is not ordinary, that this is Krishna himself. He realizes, and what happened? All these bodily feelings were manifesting. Anyone remembers the verse from Shikshashtakam, which talks about what kind of, external manifestation or these things that are discussed in one of the Sikshashtakam prayers.
Nayanam galadashrudaraya. Vadanam gadgadaruddhayagira. Pulakayarnichitam vapuha kada. Tavanama grahane bhavishyati.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Yes, oh my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? When will my hair on my body stand up when I recite your name? So all these bodily feelings were manifesting. Tears were coming from his eyes. So he wanted to hug Gopal, the boy, but Gopal moved away. He wanted to hold his hand. Somehow he held his hand, but Gopal slipped, took his hand away. And then Bilomangal Thakur says, you can escape from my hands, but how will you escape from my heart? And he wrote that famous book, Krishna Karnamritam, very advanced book, not for ordinary devotees. But the point here is, what is it that the lesson is in this whole example here is given why? Why? Because in the case of Bilvamangal Thakur, this prostitute Chintamani was his spiritual master. She's the one who guided him, made him realize. And he glorified her in many of his writings. Who will glorify a prostitute? The verse is focusing on prostitutes and how they are devotees of the Lord. Prabhupada writes, it's understood from this verse that they were all unalloyed devotees of the Lord. And in that context, Prabhupada gives this example of Bilvamangal Thakur, and became his spiritual master. So the other important point is their role in the society, which is what Prabhupada explains also wonderfully. They play a key role in the society. They are very responsible people in the society. And Prabhupada writes, this is not meant to encourage prostitution. This is not meant to encourage prostitution. These prostitutes, they had a lot of intelligence also. People who are under the strong influence of the modes of passion and ignorance, mostly dominated by passion, Rajaguna, such people once a week or once a month, Varakanta is said here, more than sense enjoyment in the family, they desire sense enjoyment outside the family. And such people, what will happen if there are no prostitutes available? What will happen? They will try to exploit chaste women in the society. So we can understand from this that, so this is a great sacrifice these women are doing to avoid exploitation of other chaste women. This is a great sacrifice they are doing. Otherwise, other chaste women can be forced by men with lust. So to protect other women, these Varamukhis have sacrificed their body. So that is one cause. Also, we can see in the Varnashrama Dharma, right? 4 Varnas. So like that there are, these goldsmiths, dhobis, same way, these prostitutes. But most important thing is they had spiritual knowledge. And they had spiritual knowledge. Then why did they do such work? Somebody may ask this question. So they can teach the men who come to them about self-realization. If you see also in the past, they would sing songs which enlighten men about self-realization. Sing songs that the body is flesh, about the 9 gates, but the reality of temporary body. Prabhupada also tells a wonderful story about a prince who once gets attracted to a beautiful woman. This is the story of real beauty. In reality, as we all have read and heard, and most of you devotees have realized that this material body is simply a bag of pus. right? But stool, urine, blood, mucus, so many horrible things. And we are simply attracted to the beautiful skin. And as soon as the skin is no longer beautiful, we are not attracted anymore. So this story Prabhupada explains, once upon a time, this prince went to meet a beautiful young girl, yeah? And immediately upon seeing her, the prince decided to marry. But she didn't want to marry him. And she knew that the prince was only interested in her material senses, her beauty, and not her real self. So she tells the prince, I'm sure anyone knows this story, or most of you know, I guess, right? Yes? Anyone?
Liquid beauty. You got the
Sorry,
story?
Mata.
The liquid beauty. Prabhupada calls the story liquid beauty.
Yes. You want to share?
Yeah, go ahead. Actually, this lady, this beautiful prince was attracted to this lady, and the lady said, "You come tomorrow." So throughout the night, she took laxative, and everything was drank the next, and put everything in different jars, And when the prince came back to see her, and he said, "You're not the same person." He said, "Yeah, I'm the same person," and just show him all the, all the pus, all the disgusting stuff, that come from the body, from the laxative, and show him that is my beauty. So that's been brief.
Thank you, Mati. Yes. Thank you. Yes, so he couldn't recognize her. He says, I have come to see this one very beautiful lady whom I'm about to marry. And she says, I am that beautiful young lady, and he couldn't believe. How could it be possible, And she says, right, as you explained, I've distilled all my beauty into this pot. And do you still want to marry me? And what do you think the prince did? Anyone? He ran away. The prince ran away. So, Prabhupada explains this. So, the king also realized. So, these kind of teachings, the prostitutes would give sometimes. And by such teachings, they would reduce the passion in men. And at the same time, uplift their spiritual consciousness. Also, Prabhupada talks about the government running wine shops. This was a question that I also had, before, and in India especially, yeah. So this is not meant. It's not meant to encourage wine shops. Of course, the reality is different. Today's politicians have different agendas, but Prabhupada is explaining here that no matter how much you restrict, there will be people who want it. You cannot, that is going to be there. And if the government doesn't support, doesn't provide, what will these people do? What will they do?
They'll smuggle and get it illicitly.
Yes, same thing about prostitution, same thing about wine. They'll illegally engage in these things. They'll secretly get it. And this was there. In Kurukshetra, there was this one political person and devotees worked with him.
It was her granddaughter. I think she was playing with her granddaughter.
Yeah, no problem. So in Kurukshetra also there is this thing happened actually. There was this one very political person who was interested, and the devotees took support of him, and they placed a ban in and around Kurukshetra. And then what happened? There was a case in the consumer court that if the government doesn't support supplying of wine, then we will illegally get it. So there was a case that you must lift this ban. You know, these devotees worked so hard with this politician, and they got to place a ban, and then there was a case. Otherwise, they threatened we will get it from adjacent state. So what, but still there was some compromise, and they placed the ban on certain key points and allowed only in the outskirts and other borders. It also reminds me, I'm not qualified to talk on the topic, but somebody brought up this recently to me about abortion, that is going on. And some case about, how somebody went to another state to get the abortion done because it was not allowed in the state in which they were living. So the whole point here was that people who are in passion and ignorance will need these things. So Prabhupada also very clearly explains here that we don't encourage prostitution, but to educate prostitutes to become Krishna conscious so they can enlighten anyone who comes to them. Just like Bilvamangal Thakur meeting with the prostitute Chintamani became a turning point of his life. And then Prabhupada also talks about sorry, what time is it? Sorry, I'm in India.
It's
Okay.
8:45.
Oh, 8:45. Okay, I'm so sorry. And just one last point I wanted to share was that, Prabhupada gives reference to the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text 32, that there is no distinction between a lower and higher class of people in devotional service. Only in the material conception of life, there are these divisions. But for anybody who is engaged in transcendental devotional service to the Lord, everyone is eligible. Everyone, the lowest born chandalas, dog eaters, can be purified by association with a pure devotee. Everybody. So devotional service and the guidance of a pure devotee are so strong that there is no discrimination between low and higher classes of people. Anyone, by proper guidance, anyone can be purified. So I'll stop here since it's already, sorry, I took a little longer. I didn't realize. And I beg for forgiveness if I've said anything incorrect, and I request all the devotees on the call to please correct and add. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, especially for being so conscientious and giving this class from India. If anybody has questions, comments, or realizations, please just unmute yourself and go ahead. I just want to say, I mean, it is the magnitude of his compassion in Srila Prabhupada in explaining this verse is just amazing. We've always looked down upon prostitutes. We know that they are usually forced into it. Nobody makes, no woman makes a choice to become this way, but it's really something else when you say that they use that also as an opportunity to enlighten the men. And that is just so true. And we need to look at everybody. I mean, everybody deserves compassion and how to look at this situation. Anybody else has anything to add, please just go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I joined a little late, so I didn't hear the purport. But another point came to my mind. Maybe it has come in the purport. But I think in another place it is said how the prostitutes, Prabhupada talking about prostitutes, I think I came across in Krishna book. There Srila Prabhupada said about the women population always being greater than the men. So not all women actually get married. So, and women, so this is also an arrangement of the Vedic society. There's always more women than men, and not all of them are getting married. So then this percentage of women, they turn into prostitutes. So that's also actually part of the system of the Vedic system. And as you have covered in the class, they are also offering service. Otherwise, there would be adultery in the society. Even cultured and chaste ladies, they would be pulled into adultery if there were no prostitutes. So, and then another point that I was contemplating on about even, all classes of people, because we see these 4 sinful activities: meat eating, intoxication, gambling, and illicit sex. They should be avoided. But here we see they are involved in, quote unquote, illicit sex. But still, they are also not barred from Krishna consciousness. And also today in the morning, in one Bhagavatam class, we were reading in the 7th canto, and there Nishingadev tells Prahlad Maharaj that wherever there is, talking about Prahlad Maharaj, wherever there is a devotee with good qualities, then the entire dynasty becomes purified. Meaning Prahlad Maharaj is his father, even though he was an asura, meat eater, and what to speak of him, the whole dynasty became purified. In the purport, Prabhupada said, what to speak of dynasty, the whole country will become purified because of one pure devotee. Then one of the participants brought up that in Manipur, because one king became a Vaishnava, today you will see the whole state of Manipur, they are all putting Vaishnav tilak and wearing neck beads, and they dress like Vaishnavas. Even those who are fishermen, sometimes they come to Mayapur wearing tilak and kanti and all that. So another devotee raised the point that, but this is not right. They are fishermen and they're wearing Vaishnav tilak. This is not correct, right? So as you brought up about the prostitutes being, like one jati, they're one group in the society. So even fishermen are one group in society, right? So it's not that you bar anyone from taking to Krishna consciousness. When you get proper association, serious association, they can also give up the sinful activity and they can take to direct, like seriously giving up all types of sinful activity. But we should not judge anyone simply based on their, work that they're doing, that they cannot be doing devotional service. We cannot judge. These were some thoughts, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Wonderful points, Mataji. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for sharing.
Every Thursday we read the verse Prasangam Majaram Pasam, Atmanaka Vidu. What is amazing is everything, Srila Prabhupada especially applies everything. It's not study a verse, memorize, recite, and move on, And the verse is the same attraction to material sense enjoyment if we apply it to a devotee. If that same attraction to a devotee, then it will open the doors to liberation. And this is the example. Today's verse is the example for that verse that we read every Thursday. It's just amazing, like I always have said, everything fits like puzzle pieces. From Bhagavatam to Gita to Chaitanya Charitamrita and everything else in between, it fits so perfectly. And it's in the application, it's not just in the recitation, it's in the application of those verses, showing compassion, leading everybody towards this, making them realize that we are eternal servants of Krishna, that we don't belong here, that we are not the body. Everything towards those realizations. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prananatha Prabhu. Especially, you said you just arrived in India, so your commitment to being with us is very much appreciated. Thank you so very much. Such a as Mother Shubharati and Mother Archana Bhakti is talking about, it's such a fascinating topic, and this verse I think really stretches our conventional way of looking at what a devotee is. And I think it should really challenge us to think that, as was mentioned, that, you know, Krishna consciousness is for everybody. And, you know, if a prostitute were to appear at our temple or at our Rath Yatra or in our presence, now granted, this may not be a prostitute that is aware of Krishna, but even say somebody comes and is seeking out Krishna or trying to find out about Krishna, how would we respond? You know, would we shun them, or would we embrace them, try to bring them closer? And I think this is something that I guess will challenge us, that to broaden our hearts and open our arms even wider to try to embrace as many people into the path of Krishna Bhakti. Yeah, it's just very, very fascinating. So appreciative of Srila Prabhupada, as well as you for giving this class. One other just mention of this topic of kind of the black market or getting things illegally. In the 1920s in America, they had this. It was a federal law called Prohibition, and basically it made the selling of alcohol illegal. And exactly what Srila Prabhupada was saying is that what happened, and one of the main reasons it came about was because what was happening, the women's movement called the suffrage movement, they were really pushing for this, because what was happening was men were, they would go to work, they would come back from work, they would go to the bars, they would get drunk, they would spend all their money, and then they would come home drunk and they would beat their wives. And then women were saying, I'm here with 4 or 5 kids, we have no money because they're all being spent at the bars, and then then we get beaten on top of that. So they became very, very strong in their voice. But what happened from that is that when they made alcohol illegal, it gave rise to a lot of mobsters and gangsters. Some of the most famous gangsters in American history, you may have heard Al Capone and Lucky Luciani. All these, they came because of they made this huge business out of the illegal sale of alcohol. So just you mentioned that you can't legislate this type of moral behavior. It has to come from a transformation of heart. You mentioned that earlier in the class. It has to come from a transformation. You have to get to the root of the problem, and that is what we have the ability to do as the Krishna consciousness movement. Is to try to transform the hearts of people, and then naturally they'll be able to give away their these material desires. There are a couple of takeaways that I had. Very, very wonderful class. Thank you.
Thank you, Dronacharya Prabhu. Yes, wonderful points you have shared. It actually reminded me now from that same movement in the 1920s, if I'm not wrong, came the women smoking. Until then, please correct me, this is my understanding, that until then, only men were smoking. And then, this whoever were making these cigarettes, they did a market research and found that they only tapped 50% of the market. Yeah, and found out that only men were smoking, and at that time the ill effects of smoking were not known, especially for women. And then, so these cigarette companies, found, got an idea, and they designed a custom cigarette. And in one of these popular, I don't know whether it was in Washington, DC or somewhere, during one of these popular parades, they made some of the most, popular Hollywood stars come there, made them the center of attraction, and then they lighted a custom made cigarette. And then, the slogan or the logo was lighting the torch of freedom. and nobody in that frenzy, asked the question, what does lighting a cigarette got to do with the freedom for women? And that's how, women started smoking. Is this right? This is my understanding. Dronacharya Prabhu, do you know about this?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I don't know about that in particular, that case with the smoking in particular, but it sounds like it sounds like it's accurate. I don't know. But after a while, they outlawed the law because they realized people are going to do it anyway. You can't legislate the behavior. It's just going to create illegal means to find it. So
yes.
Yeah.
Like you rightly pointed out, it is the transformation of the hearts, and the process is recommended here of Krishna consciousness, which is the permanent solution to these problems. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Archana Bhakti Mataji.
Prabhuji, just now Dronacharya Prabhu said about how devotees should embrace, even people from, for example, talking about the prostitutes. If they come, we should welcome them and give them Krishna consciousness. As an example to that, I just remembered something from the recent New York Rath Yatra. So after the Rath Yatra, after taking prasadam, everyone kind of settles down, and there's booths. Maharajas are sitting at the booths and people going to them and talking. So there I noticed, from the way the people dressed, it looked like they were prostitutes. At least one of them, she was sitting there. There's a water fountain, so she was sitting on the wall, and she looked pretty gloomy to me, like in deep mode of ignorance, her expression. And Mahavishnu Maharaj was going around performing kirtan, and he would not just do kirtan, but he would go and, he had a small Hare Krishna Mahamantra card. So he would show it to them and he would make them chant the Mahamantra after him. And then he would also have one of the ladies go and hold hands with them and dance in the kirtan. So this lady was sitting alone. She was dressed like a mermaid, so she couldn't really get up and walk around, but she was sitting in one place. But Maharaj actually went up to her and made her chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And then one Mataji went and, she held hands with her, and she kind of, the lady, that mermaid, was sitting in one place, and this Mataji was dancing, holding her hands. And after they left, I could see she had tears in her eyes. She was so happy. So, we should never leave any stones unturned or any souls untouched. That's what I learned from that experience. Hare Krishna.
Very nice point to meditate on and think about all day. So it's 9 o'clock. Thank you very much again, Prabhu and Archana Bhakti Mataji, for that nice point for us to be thinking about. So we'll meet again tomorrow morning at 7:50 for another wonderful class, another wonderful verse.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for nice talk.
Thank you.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.